we might be helpful to somebody else who watches things.
Sure.
It's yeah, it's still a couple of minutes to 9. A few other people will turn up. But just tell me, where are you up to, Al? You know, although we've been recording, you know, I don't tend to have a memory about things unless they're, but you know, just remind me, where are you up to with this stuff?
Yeah, I went through LU in 2020
Right.
and did the exercises and answered the questions, and they deemed that I had seen through the self, and that was three and a half years ago or so. And you know, I guess I mean, things have been going fine. Um, I think when I got turned on to the Pernilla site and I started reading about the fetters, I think that showed me that I got a bit more stuff to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I mean, intellectually, I get it. I guess when LU said, "Okay, you're through the gate," I was sort of really, because it seemed to me like I had an intellectual understanding,
Yeah.
but of course I had expectations that it was going to be some sort of like Holy Ghost explosion. I was going to have some major like aha moment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
thing I really like about your site and Pernilla's site is that it seems it speaks to me more practically.
Yeah.
You know, like I still have a lot of reactivity. I still have a lot of emotional stuff. Um, but knowing that, you know, getting out of the head, trying to get out of the head and more into the body. And that allows me to, for lack of a better thing, just to travel more lightly.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Gotcha. Yep. Yep. Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt in your mind that self exists only as stories, eh? Would that be accurate?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Yep.
I mean, there are some stories though that have more weight.
Of course. Of course.
There
Yeah.
is
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
there's still doubt there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, well, doubt, of course, is something that comes along afterwards, almost always. There's, I've witnessed a lot of people go through the gate, and I can't actually remember very many of them who didn't have doubt come along at some point. And they say the same kind of thing. Oh, yes, look, it must be only an intellectual understanding because I'm still reactive. And so, but yeah. But that, look, I'm still reactive. Yeah, we will be still reactive for a long time until we get all sorts of stuff cleared up. And even then, you know, a lot of people who are quite famous for their oh, how can I put it, for their guruship, for want of a better word. That's a shitty way to put it, but you know what I mean. That they may not be reactive in the same way that we are with more trivial stuff, but frequently they get sick. You know, things happen to them, and what it leads me to believe, and yeah, anyway, what I've come to the conclusion that the body can hold a lot of stuff that we just don't get to with our mental gyrations. So you know, yeah, I think it's a good thing to appreciate that you may never see the time come when you're no longer reactive at all, but how you respond to that reactivity, that's a big one. You know, so one would hope that you see that you have reacted fairly quickly. So, you know, once the reactivity will often take us into the content of what we've reacted to, and we just live it out. We just express it at an emotional level. So how quickly you see that that's what's happened is a big thing. and how you respond to that. So one of the things that I keep telling people is it doesn't mean that anything's been undone. So the more shit that you get out of the road, the more stuff will come up, or the easier it comes up. So it's always forward. It's always more. It's never backwards to where you were. Yeah. Yeah. So one of the things here you'll see people who've been through the gate for quite some time turn up, and one of the things that happens is that we start to have a reality check about those expectations, right? So the idea of floating in bliss forever, that's just total garbage, it doesn't happen.
Yeah. I will say this. It's very easy for me to get up here. It's not so easy for me to get into the body and feel.
Right. Yep.
I come from a background where the family was very expressive, but you didn't talk about it. So a lot of stuff was left undone. And so, it's like I said, it's very easy for me to get up here, but to get in here and actually feel, it's tough. I watch your forum here, and I see people who really seem to be able to get in touch with what's going on in the body, to get out of the head and the emotion of all the sensations. And I do a lot of just sitting in quiet, which, I don't know why I do it, but I find that very comforting.
Sure.
And I keep thinking that sooner or later something's gonna burst through, and I might have some real emotional breakdown or something. And there's a bit of fear there about that. So I kind of, but we'll see. That's why I'm here, just kind of like you say, to keep me in check.
Yeah, good one. Yeah.
So,
well, we all help each other, that's the thing, isn't it?
Yeah, that's great.
I refer to these groups as like a hive mind, the different perspectives that people bring to it can be really useful, Yeah. How are you, Don?
Yeah, I'm not too bad. Thanks, Vince. It's nice to see everyone again. Yeah, I'm kind of what would I say? I think I'm slowly calming down from. I think I would think, Vince, you've probably met me at the worst time in my life. So well, almost. It's been pretty bad for the last few weeks. I'm slowly calming down since before Christmas, and I find I try to get to like calming down enough to watch some Angelo video about 4 or 5 p.m. or something, and then start to just not follow my thoughts every instant for a little while, and it gives me a small bit of confidence that I can do that. If I can, I found a video for a year and a half ago, and I was just watching. It's only 7 minutes long. Just staying present and just watching the amount of energy, any story of any kind, whether good or bad. I just want to be on a story of some kind and trying to stay. And I haven't managed to smile very often when I bring myself back, but I try and do. But it gives me a little bit of confidence. So I'm just trying to get through that. It really is weird, like trying to get through the day. I don't have a huge amount of work on at the moment. It's not very busy, but the amount of anxiety is enormous. I'm sometimes pacing the house going, how can I get through the day? I'm so anxious. I'm so agitated all the day. And I just get through the day until 4 or 5, and I just do a bit of, try to sit down, do some practice, and just keep on reminding myself that most of it is my thoughts. And then I kind of go, if I can persuade myself that most of this, if not all of it, is just my thoughts, then maybe I have a hope and I can feel a bit more relaxed.
Don, do you get this one? Trying to not be in your thoughts, trying to calm yourself down, it's counterproductive. You're not going to get there doing that. All you do is reinforce all that stuff. The thing to do is to allow it to happen and watch it, see it happening, and don't have an opinion about it. Don't have this thing that says, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. I should be calm. I better stop it. Don't do that. Let it happen and watch it, and watch if an opinion about it arises, and don't do anything else. Just do that. That'll change things, but don't worry about the change.
I don't understand. To be honest, I don't understand when you or anyone else says that kind of a thing, because when I try to just allow things to proceed, I'm not watching it, I'm in it, and it's real, and it's so true, and it gets worse and worse. I don't know how to watch it without trying to put the brakes on a little bit, going, hold on a second. Right. I feel I have to slow things down enough just to watch it, and that sounds like teeth gritting effort, but I don't know. Does that make any sense? I don't know how. Yeah, when I allow things to go, I'm just going with them, and it's getting worse and it's spiraling. I'm getting upset, and I'm thinking I have to ring somebody to tell the story to because it's too much for me, and it's a big drama, and I have to really try to drag myself down from the speed of that just to watch it rather than be in it. Something like that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. Yeah.
But I know it does sound like I know I kind of joke sometimes that I try very hard to be relaxed, that kind of thing. But there is something about trying to keep persuading myself to sit. And I genuinely do, I think, end up somewhat relaxed, but I just have to keep on. I don't know whether it's effort or just vigilance, and maybe it is totally wrong what I'm doing. I just feel it kind of works if I keep trying to remind myself to not be persuaded by the next story. I just don't know how to. Yeah, sorry, I just don't know. So many people say what you've just said, and I go, what do you mean? Just watch it. It doesn't make any sense.
Okay. Another thing to add to that is there's nothing wrong. You cannot do anything wrong. Okay, no matter what you try to do, what you don't do, what you do, there's nothing wrong. Because by the time you realize what it is you've done or what it is that's happening, it's in the past. It can't, right and wrong are stories we make up about the things. You get that, don't you?
Sometimes get it. I know that in theory. I don't know if I always know it's true as I go along. You know what I mean? So I don't really. Like, I feel the trajectory of things. You know, for the last 30 whatever years of meditation and therapy and whatnot, it's not been a wonderful trajectory. I don't see. Yeah, I suppose, and I'm talking from my mind. I suppose, where am I? But like, it does feel like I could possibly have done things better, or some things could have gone better, or something. Or I don't see the trajectory I'm on as a positive one that's guaranteed to end up somewhere good. It could end up just going the same way it's been going for another decade or two. My mind really wants to see it going in the right direction and figure out how to get it to go in a better way than it has been, because I've been trying this for a really long time. I know you said you saw it for 40 years, didn't you? So I haven't got as far as that yet. I've only got to 35, 30 years. I have some time to go, but I don't trust it. I want to see that it's going in a proper direction, or something is improving, or, you know, people talk about doing therapy and they're healing something, or I'm like, I don't think I've ever healed anything. I don't don't know what I'm. Yeah. So I'm kind of constantly observing, going, is this working? Am I doing the right thing?
So wait a minute. How do you know what's a proper direction? If you haven't experienced it, how do you know?
Only, I suppose it would be, ideally, I'd feel better, you know, at the end of a meditation session than I did at the beginning. But ideally, I would feel better at the end of a year or 5 years than I did at the beginning of that period. I would be less anxious or agitated. I'd be more calm. I'd be more confident, less, something like that. And if I look back,
that hasn't happened. So therefore, you're not going in the right direction. Is that what you think?
Yeah, that's what I think. Yeah. Pretty well. Yeah. Because, like, I found a notebook. I just quickly say I found a notebook here at some point a year during the last year, and I had taken notes at a Buddhist retreat like 12 or 14 years ago, and it said something like, "Get out of your head and into your body and feel your feelings." I'm like, fucking hell! How long have I been trying to do that? Still haven't figured out how to do that. And I knew I needed to do that.
You still think it's the right direction?
2012. What?
You haven't done it, but you still think it's the right direction.
I don't know. I'm sure you've told
me.
The definition
of insanity to keep doing the same thing and expect different results.
I suppose Is that not what everyone tells me to do, though? Get out of my head and into my body. Isn't that what you're supposed to do?
But it's, yeah, look, but people to tell you to do that, they're insane. You know, you can't do that. How can you do that? Can you control your thoughts? Can you stop them from happening? Can you shape them?
I suppose I don't think so, but it seems that maybe, I don't know, it seems that maybe I can try to kind of prevent myself from getting caught by them a little bit by intending to come back and stay present or something. I don't know if that's true.
You've been trying to do that for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah.
And it hasn't worked, eh? So let's give up
Not
on
very
that.
well.
Let's give up on that. Let's try something totally different. Now, I know what you say, and I hear what you say, and I understand that well, I imagine that there's probably fear behind it, that if you stop trying to do things, that you're going to get swept away in a hurricane of something or other. Yeah. So that's a pretty big fear, isn't it? You know, the idea that if you let go, you're just going to you're just going to become a mess.
Yeah, I suppose so. Yeah. Sometimes additional thoughts recently telling me like, your thoughts are so crazy, they're going to take you away. Look how powerful they are, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it's weird. And I don't know what.
Let me ask you this. Can a thought think?
No.
Does a thought actually have any power?
Not in itself. It's just, I guess, if I believe it, is it?
It's got something to do with what you believe, hasn't it? You know, when we say a thought is powerful, it's really about our belief in it that we're talking about, eh?
Yeah.
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 Well, I guess the power, maybe some of the power, if I assign power to thoughts, if there's a lot of thoughts in a row and if I'm not vigilant enough, they can just end up being believed. And I have to, that's why I feel I have to make an effort to stop myself going on.
Have you experienced that state where your thoughts have just got you incapable of moving because they're just going crazy? Have you experienced that state, or is it just a fear that will happen if you don't control them?
It's sort of just a fear. I mean, you know, they do debilitate me in all large parts of my life as far as concentrating and reading and dealing with people and all kinds of things. But I haven't completely become immobilized. I can still live my life. So the fear is a bit extreme. It hasn't really happened like that.
So what if you were to allow them free rein with a safety net, that you can use to stop you from going right over the edge, but will allow you to go right to the edge? And if you had a safety net that stopped you from going over the edge, would you feel more comfortable going to the edge?
I guess so. I don't know what that safety net would look like. Do you have an idea? You do?
No, I don't have any idea about it. We'll make one. We'll find one.
Make one. I don't know for sure. Yeah, maybe that would be, I mean, those little thoughts only come every now and then, the scary ones. I just feel like what I've spent most of my life doing until I sometime, you know, every now and then get interested in meditation for a few years. What I spend most of my life doing is just spending it in a daydream. I'm just daydreaming about the future and more and more dreams and dreams. It's just a big bloody dream all day long. That's all that happens when I don't make an effort not to do that, it seems. When I hear some message about non-duality or Buddhism or something about not us being, you know, caught up in thoughts or not being in the present, I go, oh, that's totally true. I'm not in the present. I'm in thoughts all the time. I should do something. I should do something about that. And if I don't do so, I don't know. My assumption is if I don't do something about that, then it just continue just being a big dream. And I can't even, unfortunately, I know the thing about, not being able to control myself. I can't even create a good dream that ends well for me anymore. I think when I was 20 or 30 years ago, I could have a fantasy that would work out well for me. Now it doesn't work out quite as well anymore.
Can I ask Don a question?
Of course, yes.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
What if it's all just one big fantasy of you micromanaging what's happening, and it actually has no bearing on what's happening whatsoever? What if it has no relation to what's happening, and it's just a hallucination that there's someone there managing, and that is just not real. It's not even related to what's happening. You're just imagining someone there to manage it.
I know, I can even feel the someone you're talking about there. Yeah, and I guess I'm trying to see that. And this, yeah.
What if it's
I
just
know
an
there's
illusion?
Yeah. But I can't understand. I know that the someone is the important piece probably, but like I can't understand what all of you people over here are doing, turning up here and doing all of this stuff that you do. If all you're also doing is letting everything go the way it was going anyway, why didn't you just go to the supermarket and go to the pub and not bother coming to this meeting? It must be doing something different.
You already don't do it. There are times when you forget to do it.
I was going to go.
already-
I was going to go for a walk, and I found myself on the meeting, but it just happened. There wasn't anyone making that choice. It just like, oh, okay, well, this is what's happening. You said you could feel a someone, Don.
I
So
mean,
where is that someone
I know it's
that
just
you can feel, not think about in thought content?
yeah, it's more of a thought / feeling of me, and it comes and
So
goes.
the feeling, go to the feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So where is it? Chase it.
Yeah.
Find it. Where would it be? Would it be out here?
Where's your finger pointing?
It's in somewhere in my head, and the more I focus on it, it dissolves. Then it's gone. Almost.
So
And
is
then
there a someone?
comes back somewhere else. I'm pretty sure there isn't someone, but just I keep on believing that there is over and over again, or feeling like there is, and I keep looking and then there isn't, or it keeps moving. So I keep looking and finding that there isn't, but then the feeling or the contention, the belief that there is someone comes back over and over, and I keep looking. So I keep doing that, but I haven't become so convinced yet that
Yeah,
what?
that's it. It's to. I think that when you start going into I thoughts and someone thoughts, it's the pointer of thought. You know, listening to thought content, because all this is thought content. Is to know that that's a pointer to, oh, okay, someone, me, look, and just keep looking. And as Vince was saying, there is, it's natural that we can experience a disbelief or doubt, and that's also more thinking. But if you just keep looking, and that will make space somehow in the body for you to look deeper into the body. It's a really good entryway, a gentle entryway into the body, to sleep looking for that someone.
Can you feel the energy of all that mental busyness? How that's so familiar to you?
Yeah.
And you get something from that busyness.
I suppose it just feels like an addiction that I can't seem to, and even though I know that it's whoever I am, I know that it doesn't help me. I keep going off and off on it. I get frustrated by the fact that I keep going off, but I get something, I suppose, distraction or some hope that I'll feel better if I tell myself a story or whatever
Comfort.
that is.
It's a comfort.
Because otherwise I'll just be here all on my own with no one to talk to, kind of thing. There'll be no story to be in. I'll just be, that's what it feels like. So And yet I know that's where kind of what I want to be, is here without being off on a story and
But can
noticing
you
that.
sense how it's not really there? What you're creating in your mind, it's not there.
I I know that intellectually it just feels so
That's more of it.
compelling. I'm trying to look at it going, I know this isn't true. And it pulls me off and makes, yeah. I feel embarrassed. I mean, yeah, I'm embarrassed when you say that. Of course, I know it's only thoughts, but it feels so compelling that I'm going, oh God, I have to keep looking. That's part of my teeth gritted effort, just keeping looking, going, this isn't real. I need to see through this.
But you don't put it down. You don't put it down even for a second. You just go right back into it. It's a habit. It's just a habit.
And it's a defense mechanism created by the organism at a very young age, and also the way the organism, your body, mind, or meat suit, as Pernilla likes to say, structured itself because of its unique particular sensibility towards the outside world. And just a thought came to my mind that so in the northern hemisphere, can't remember which way the water turns, but anyway, or whatever, energy movement. So it's an energy movement that's always sort of a programmed or mechanism in you, because I recognize it in myself, that's always going upwards. That's the tendency to flee, to escape into thought and thought content, fantasy, looking at everything and putting a strong overlay. But you could imagine that, okay, so, it feels like in someone slowly starting to turn that little spring so that it can go downwards to find the someone. And then the natural tendency will be to go up again, but it's like, okay, so you can make the mechanism, I don't know, this is just a way of thinking of it, start turning to look deeper, even if it wants to go back up again. It's not you doing it, it's just happening, but it's also the structure of the body mind that created those diversions, because to actually feel what's going on is really, really intense. And it's like baby steps. I don't know if that's helpful.
I know it is. Thank you. Yeah, I do all the, it's funny. I do. I think I do most of the things that you, I don't know if there's nobody here doing anything. I don't know how I would say that, but the things that you're suggesting, you're all suggesting, as I say, I just find it frustrating the amount of, what's the word? Inertia or whatever the thing is, the amount of habit that's in it, the amount of energy that, that I find one of you might say to me, do you believe there's a person there? And I kind of go, no, but I spend 99% of my time feeling convinced that there is, because I'm in a story where I'm a person, and I want to bring myself back from that to the present and go, let it to drop out of the story, or drop the story or something, and go, oh yeah, there isn't a person. And then whoosh, I'm back to being a person again. So
it won't come from trying, because that's just more doing. Rupert Spira likes to use a metaphor of having a headache, and then you take a pill, and then at some point later in the day, you just happen to notice, my headache isn't here anymore. When did it leave? I didn't notice when it left. And it can be like that, because you already do forget to do that. You forget. There are moments when you're not doing that, but you just don't notice. And it's so familiar, you just slip right back into it. But it's not that you need to try to stop doing it. It just needs to be seen clearly. And then at some point, it just won't be happening. And then you'll notice less that it's happening less. But it won't be a doing, something that you're going to do, because that's just part of the illusion of being a manager of what's happening. There's no manager there. It's just not there.
A couple of things come to mind for me, Don, as we've been talking and whatever. One is, I believe that you see quite clearly that there isn't an actual self-sufficient self there running the show. I believe you see that.
Yeah.
But then this other thing comes along that says, oh, but I feel like there is. Well, how about that's okay? Of course, if we, it gets a little tricky. If we look at things from a certain perspective, like let's say we're out in some kind of a social situation, and people say, "How are you going?" Right? You're not going to say, "Who are you talking about? There's nobody here." You're not going to say that. You're going to go, "I'm okay," or whatever. You know what I mean? So there's a and you don't think about it even. In the beginning, you might think about it a lot more. You might go, well, you know, you might think to yourself, oh, I know there's not really anybody here, but it's appropriate for just to say I'm fine because it's a social situation, right? The feeling that there is someone there, this is a tricky one, isn't the feeling that there is someone there. It is a feeling, and then the mind says, from a certain perspective, I would have to describe this as someone there. You see, there's a difference there.
Yeah, so that's what one of the things I'm trying to look at. And unfortunately, it's preceded by several hours of gritting my teeth and trying to come back to the present. But when I get back, you know, I don't know. I'll see whether I can avoid doing that. I do try and do that. I do try and go, why does this feel like a person, or something, and see that it's just a sensation or a feeling or something.
So what I tell people is this: when you believed that there was an actual self running the show, that's a delusion. It's a delusion because you believe it. You believe something that's blatantly not true. It's a delusion. When you recognize that there's no one there, but you still have those feelings, it's an illusion, right? It's the same as seeing the shiny water on the road. It's not actually water. It's just a reflection kind of thing, right? So you know it's not there, even though it looks like it is, right? So even though it feels like there is, you know it's not, right? So the delusion turns into an illusion. Right? That's something you're going to live with for quite a while. It'll fade more and more, but for a while it's going to stay there. So you live with the illusion that there's someone there running the show. What we're talking about too is beliefs, what we believe. Well, let's put that aside for the moment. The other thing that came to mind as we were talking was that it might be fruitful for you to look at what is the advantage of being the way you are. Right? There is an advantage, otherwise you wouldn't be there. And as crazy as you might feel, that's probably pretty sane compared to how you imagine you would be if you let go of all of this. So it might be safe to say that it's a safety net you've got. This craziness that you live with is a safety net. It's Panilla will say it's a solution. Right? It's a solution to something. So I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to answer to me with the very first words that come to mind. What's the advantage of being the way you are? Don't think
it makes me feel like,
say what comes to mind.
I think it makes me feel like I'm not alone. It feels like that everyone I know is in this story. And if I drop the story, I'm just alone in the universe.
Right. Okay. So that's pretty clear, eh? Wow. Yeah, that's a big one. Yeah.
I was feeling that the last 6 months. Yeah. I don't even know if I was thinking, do I know anyone in real life, or is it just everyone in the story? And if I drop this, it's just, Yeah,
that's great. Yeah. So do you imagine it is different for anybody else? Do you imagine anybody else?
I don't know.
Is it in the same situation?
I don't know. Sometimes I don't want to, I don't want, when I hear Paul Hederman talking about, what's it called? Terminal uniqueness, I go, no, but I am. Because I know sometimes I listen to some people, I just listen to people. I go, wow, I don't often meet people who sound as crazy as me when I listen to them describing their experience.
Hey, I
Sometimes.
have to tell you, Don, everybody here is as crazy as you.
Oh, really? Oh my gosh. Maybe I should try a different group next week.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. And yeah, it's funny.
So that you say alone, but I want to say, I wonder if it's loneliness rather than being alone.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Mm.
There is loneliness. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be pretty heart-wrenching stuff, eh?
There's a bit of that from my current life, but also I think there's childhood stuff, trauma stuff from a feeling that I was never connected from my earliest childhood. There's a lot of fear around that I've come across in the last 6 months
that's
to a
what
year.
Rowena was saying, how this stuff can very often originate. In fact, for all of us, a huge amount of stuff does originate, even at what you would call a pre-verbal level, right? So you can be a baby that doesn't know a word, that can't think in words, and you can feel alone because you've been left by yourself for just a moment too long. And that can stay with you for your whole life, sure. Yeah. Not saying that is what the case for you, but it could be. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I've come across a few of those feelings or whatever the word is in from substance assisted whatever activities at the weekends over the the last year or two, helping me to see what's happening. It feels like down at the age of 1 or 1.5. I mean, I'm only guessing the age. You don't have any proper memories, but it feels like some of that. And in the last few weeks, just some real dread of like death or something or aloneness, but almost all day. And I try to sit with it and go, it's just a sensation. I don't know what I'm even doing, but I'm just trying to stay with it. And it's pretty intense. I don't know exactly what to do, but I try and stay with it.
Okay, so there can be a bit of skill with this stuff. If you try and stay with it with the idea that you're going to fix something, that's a bit counterproductive. Huh? The way out of it is through it. So letting yourself sink into it, letting yourself feel it to the point where you're going to cry like a baby. That's the best way to understand it. See, the thing is, back when let's just paint a fantasy picture that this happened when you were 1.5 years old, okay, and that you shit your nappy and you got left alone for way too long, and you just felt really, really wretched and lonely and really wanted some comfort that you have experienced before this. And so you knew what that comfort was, and that was to get your nappy cleaned and get a new one and get touched and get held and get warm and all those things that you really wanted. And it wasn't happening. It wasn't happening. For 5 minutes, you're there bawling your eyes out and it's not happening. And you feel absolutely wretched, totally wretched. As a child, it feels like the end of the world. As that 1.5-year-old, there is no time involved, right? That moment is forever. It has no end as a 1.5-year-old. But as an adult, you know that it's only a couple of minutes, and you know that something's going to happen, and you know that the reason that your mum didn't come and change your nappy was because she was busy with something else or whatever. You know what I mean? You can bring an adult's perspective to the child's experience, and it changes things. You can let go of what your body has been hanging on to all these years, and that for a lot of these years, it didn't reveal itself. It took certain circumstances, like the death of your parents that happened, well, one of them fairly recently. Takes certain circumstances for it to pop back into the present and be there. And here it is, but it happened before then too. You've been crazy for a little bit longer than that, eh? Yeah.
Yep.
But there you go. So and you don't have to actually relive that experience that might have happened as a baby. You don't really even know what it was. You just have to accept that something happened, that there was something there. And in so doing, what you do is you can bring that adult's perspective to that, and you can allow release. Yeah. Whew. So I'm trying to think of what we could use as a safety. And I really don't think you need one, but let's try and think of something. What could we use that you will grasp to stop yourself from going right over the cliff while you walk precariously along the edge as you explore this stuff?
I mean, maybe it's not terrible. I mean, I haven't gone over it yet, as far as I can see.
That's true. That's true.
So
Yeah.
maybe I'm safe enough. And it's just every now and then I get a scary thought on top of another one.
Right. Well, how about for a start, you can email me at any time.
Okay, thank you.
You can friend me on Facebook, and then you can use Messenger to do that. We can have a video call on Messenger if you want. So maybe I can be your safety net if you really need it.
All right,
I'm happy to do that. I'm really willing and happy to do that. That might be something.
That's very kind.
Yeah.
I do have this. It's just been as usual. As you know, right? I have to start apologizing for talking too long. I should have started apologizing some time for that. But I have this thing about the word surrender, for example, comes to my mind now, and I feel that I completely misunderstand it, or just what it brings up is that I don't know. I assume that surrender in this context means surrendering to what's happening or reality or something, and yet for me, surrender always feels like surrendering into the stories and becoming more and more crazy and believing the thoughts. Surrendering is like in practice for me. Unless I get a grip and go, I'm going to stay in the present moment. Surrender is like, I'm just going to believe a bunch of crazy thoughts for the rest of the day and become more depressed and anxious before tea time. And it's weird. So when you think about a kind of a safety net or something, that's the kind of a little bit of when it hasn't happened for a little while, but I've practicing and meditating and I'm thinking about just letting go or giving up or something, there's always a little bit of a fist here going, yes, but not to the crazy thoughts. Everything else is fine, feelings and sensations and but not to the weird. I don't want to go off into nowhere with thoughts that mean nothing, are just almost designed to make me feel worse. And I'm always a little bit afraid of that. Maybe that's not necessary, but I sometimes have that fear that my thoughts are, and then I go, well, it's justified not to believe those because they're just silly thoughts.
Yeah. Well, I'd like you to allow yourself to get into those, allow yourself to be carried away by those. Yeah, it came up recently for me that the mind can come up with some really, really amazingly stupid, seemingly irrelevant stuff. And somebody said to me, well, somebody said that that their friends had told them that it was probably an expression of something subconscious. And I went, oh yeah, well, let me think about that. And you know, I woke up from a dream. I was having a nano nap yesterday, actually, and I woke up from that dream, and I never remember my dreams, but this time I did. It was in the day, and when I woke up, I just heard one line of a woman singing a song, and you know what? I've actually forgotten what the words are now. That's what dreams are like, but they were kind of crazy words. They didn't mean anything, but I looked at them, and I went, you know what? Even though they're nonsensical, I reckon if I follow it down, I can probably come to something that does make sense. But I don't have to do that. It's not mandatory that I do follow that or that I do make sense out of that crazy stuff. What's valuable is to say that it's an expression of something. And I don't have to know what that is, just an expression. Right? So it's me getting something out. It's me bringing something up and getting it out. And that's all it is. And that's enough. I don't need to actually follow it and find what it's talking about. Maybe it's talking about something, maybe it's not. Maybe it's just a lead into something that's meaningful, but who knows? Doesn't matter. And I don't care. So I'm saying, let those crazies come. Let those crazy thoughts happen wherever they're going to happen, and appreciate them for just being an expression of something, and don't take it any further. Don't worry about what it means or what it doesn't mean or anything like that. Just let it go. But what I'm asking you to do, after telling you not to do anything, is to allow. See, that word surrender is a good one, and it's a tricky one too, because there is a pretty much a social connotation for surrender, which means I become a victim. I give up. I'm resigning myself to. Well, that's not the kind of surrender we're talking about. What I'm talking about when I say surrender is a willing acceptance, a welcoming, an invitation, if you like, for what's already there. And if that already there is crazy thoughts, then surrendering to them is saying they're okay, right? Just play with the idea of allowing them to do whatever they want to do, to say whatever they want to say, right? And if you want something to do, if it happens, allow yourself to consider whether or not you have an opinion about them. Right? So what we're talking about here is developing metacognition. That is, an awareness of being aware. Being aware of being aware. Right? So allow the crazy thoughts and watch whether or not you have an opinion about them. A judgment. Opinions are judgments, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
It's all discovery. It's all experimental. It's all just see what happens.
Yeah.
We don't know what the outcome will be. Let's just see what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
I'm just adding to what Vince said. Is there've been times, and this could be helpful, is actually, I don't know if you can, if you where you are, but is actually shouting out the crazy thoughts, as it were, to the universe, and then waiting for the answer. See what you get back, and then rest in that.
Okay. I can nearly do it here, I guess, but yeah, there's not many people to listen to me. Okay, yeah, that's an idea.
But
Thank you, yeah.
you're shouting them out to something that beyond you, whatever. And then there's going to be something that comes back, and just literally allow that to have its impact on you.
Okay, yeah. Okay, thank you. I'll see how that goes. Yeah.
See what happens.
Yeah,
Hi,
thanks.
Rebecca. You're a new face here. Tell us where you're up to on this so-called journey.
Oh, how do you do that?
Well, start with telling us if what we've been going on about makes any sense to you.
Oh yes, oh yes. I've been on this trip for quite a while, and I recently discovered Pernilla's videos and went through, following her all the way through the third, and then went back to the second, because I think that's where I'm getting a lot out of it. And I've come down to a bottom level. There's a tiny little pinched no under all the yes that I every now and then can feel very clearly that comes from long ago, and I'm trying to understand that I can just let go, but it still feels sort of intractable. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Am I saying enough?
Yep. So you would say that you're kind of stuck in the second feather in doubt.
Yes, I'm stuck in resistance.
Resistance. Okay.
Yeah, and
How do you know that what makes you describe it as resistance? What are
it's
they?
fear. It's fear. I've had many experiences of great freedom, of just dropping all this, and then at some point, this fear comes up and shuts. It feels like a contraction. It feels like I just shut down. And I know where it comes from. You know, I've done enough thinking about childhood. It's that I didn't have a connection with anybody and was never safe, and so that's what the fear is. That there's nothing safe about anything. And I know much better than that. I've had experiences where I understand totally. I'm right with the world. Everything is perfect. I know that, and I know that this little pinch is right under there.
So tell us how, when you have these experiences of being right with the world, I like the way you put that. How long do they last? Are they a few minutes, a few hours, a few days, a few months, years? How
Oh,
long?
it varies. It varies. Once it was a whole month. But these days it's more often and shorter.
And does that shutting down come? Is it the result of it being triggered in some way, or does it seem to come out of nowhere? How would you describe that?
The shutting down, the fear.
Yeah.
I know it's resident.
Well, it's always there.
It's yes. I'm not aware of it all the time, but
So when you're feeling right with the world, the fear is still there at the same time. Do you experience the fear then, or do you just reason that it's still there?
No, I don't experience. That's the wonderful thing. It's gone.
Yes. Right. Okay.
But then it makes it very clear to me that it isn't gone.
Okay. So
Like one time
you believe in
I was.
the logic.
What?
Sorry. So you
One
believe in the
time,
logic, yeah.
I don't know. What do you mean?
Well, if you're not experiencing it, if it's not there, and then it comes back, you're saying to yourself, it must have always been there. That's a logical conclusion.
Maybe. But I'm thinking about one time, last year or sometime, I was playing with my dog, and suddenly I was everything opened up, just opened up. I was like in the universe. I was like in the stars, and it was and I could feel myself shutting it down. I could feel.
Okay, right. Okay, that's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's also 5 a.m. here, and I'm a little bit fuzzy.
that's okay. I know that feeling. How do you know it's fear that you're using to shut it down?
Good question.
Sounds like a stupid question, but yeah, explain.
No,
to
I
me.
don't. It's not a stupid question. I think I have always been afraid. I have always had, you know, from very early, I called it fear.
Mm. So you experience like a contraction, a body knows somewhere?
Yeah.
Yep. And
Yeah.
and is that mainly in the stomach area?
Solar plexus, I think. Yeah.
Solar plexus, yep. And you somehow it attracts the label of being afraid, of
Yes.
fear, yeah.
Yes. A fear of being totally alone.
Okay. Yeah.
There's something in there as sort of being a archetypal orphan.
Yes, yeah, gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. This sounding familiar, Don? Yeah. 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 Adriana's nodding as well. Yeah.
And you know, I mean, I don't know how to. I don't know where to put them both. How do they coexist? That I know so clearly, have had such clear experience of just being present, of not being of being a me-shaped point of view,
Say that last one again.
of being a me-shaped point of view only. That I understand so well and from experience that none of this is true, and yet it's still.
Yep, it's there, yeah.
Still comes. Yeah.
Mm.
And I think, you know, as you're talking, I'm thinking it's a useful story
Yeah.
in the culture I live in. It's a useful story to be able to say, oh, well, I just felt abandoned by my parents, and so I've got work to do.
Your volume is very low, Rebecca. It's
Oh,
quite hard to hear you.
I'm not sure
Yes,
if I can.
if you go up, are you on your computer? You look like you are.
Yeah, I am.
If you go up to the top, up to the very top, up to the menu, and you've got Zoom.us. If you click
No,
on
I
that
don't.
and go down to preferences.
I don't have anything like that.
Oh, okay.
I have audio settings.
Yeah, for audio settings. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, okay. Output level. Put it up. Let's see. Volume. Come on. It's not moving. And it doesn't seem to want to do that.
Yeah. Okay. For me, it's in preferences, and I can up my output volume.
Here we go. Okay, I just managed to up my output and my microphone input. Okay, is that better?
Yep, that is better. Thank you. Yeah.
Good. Okay, here I am. What didn't you hear?
Yeah. So I missed the last thing you said. The two things living together. What are they again?
Knowing so clearly that none of this is true. Experiencing so clearly that none of it is true. And having it be so powerful at the same time.
Right.
I wanted to just add that Pernilla and Todd now view the fetters as a wheel. And I think it's really helpful because they're actually, you know, going through, and they're also just a concept too of identification. But if we get, you said you went up to the third, then you went back to the second, and you could have an identification of the, you know, the baseline things going on. but it can be something else further up in the more subtle realms that is trigger that activates that sense. And so how to explain? I can only say that when I started working with the sixth veteran, I still work with it, and I just go into direct seeing, and I sit with seeing, and sometimes I look at an object and my whole body is filled with fear. I mean, okay, and I take away the label. I just say, this is really strange. And I did it yesterday, and I was in my living room, but I had put a exercise thing, which was a sort of like a hedgehoggy thing, on a chair, so it didn't belong there. And I sat in a sort of looking just at the visual field, and then I was working with looking as a subject, object, whatever thing, at this thing. My whole body went into like, had this electric sort of charge on it. And it's like, this is so strange. And because I resonate with what you're saying. And so it's just like when a completely inanimate bit of plastic object does that, it's an organism thing responding and learning to be deeper in the senses, take off the filters that we've put on from fully using our senses in this world, in the world that we live in. And so there's room for exploring that through different ways, following the theta model, especially the way Pernilla's offering it, and with one's own explanations. I don't know if that's helpful.
You're muted, Rebecca.
Yeah. Just keep going and see what happens. You're muted, Rowena.
Yeah, each one points back, and so I think I find it helpful not to get stuck, because if you just keep saying, oh, I want to fix theta 2, then there's identification with it, whereas allowing yourself to explore, you're going to be amazed that things further down the line are going to keep, maybe even the sensations are going to become more intense, because the body is starting to open up to sensation. And so it's like, this is getting worse, but it's not. That's just a thought. It's just like, oh, wow, the body can feel more. And so I don't know where it stops, this capacity to, because I had a feeling, I was like, Dawn, I just couldn't get, there was a lot of armoring, but it's without a label of fear or dread or anything uncomfortable. It's like, how big is this? How big is this? Can this sensation be? And then and just being with it somehow as a sensation, the same as looking as the color of the grass. And just so.
Yeah, I do that, and it's a slow process. So yeah.
It occurs to me, Rebecca, to say, watch opinions, watch any judgments you have about what's happening or what's not happening. Don't do anything about them, just watch them. Part of what we're learning to do is to be open to whatever presents itself. And being open, we don't say that's good or bad or welcome or not welcome. It's just what is. Things happen. Things will happen just because you've been talking about it, just because you've been expressing yourself. Things will start moving. And just to reiterate what one of the things that Rowena said there is, and that is that when shit comes up, it doesn't mean we've gone backwards. What it means is we've cleared something out so that it can happen.
Oh, I know that. I know that. I'm I look forward to that. Yeah, no, I have no need to be happy.
Yeah.
It's very tricky, all this.
It is.
But so fascinating.
It's better than Netflix.
It's much better. You never know what's going to happen, and it's always new.
What part of the world are you in now, David Bonnie? You still in Vietnam?
Hello. Yes, I'm still in Vietnam. Can you hear me? Because I
Yes.
changed my.
Yes,
Yeah, I'm
yes.
still in Vietnam now. I flew to a town. It's smaller, and it's after one month of traveling, we finally feel that we can stay here for a while. So I'm happy to feel that I can rest.
Yes. Just shitty internet there. He's frozen. Yeah.
Internet's not good. Okay.
Jeremy, how are you? Yeah, don't answer that. I know how you are. I think, yeah. What were you thinking when Rebecca was talking? Give Rebecca some insights.
I hopped in too late. I
You
only
missed-
heard the very, very end.
Okay. She was saying that she feels, has on many occasions felt very much at peace, at one with the world, and then fear comes back and undoes all of that for a little while. Yeah, don't force her.
It resonates a bit. This whole thing's a bit fresh to me, and so I've heard other people talk about a sort of honeymoon period initially, and then other stuff starts coming up, or there's a fade to it a little bit, and I think there's a lot of truth in the just continuing to feel into the body.
So do you meditate, Rebecca? Do you do much body work?
I meditate every morning at about this time for about an hour.
My thoughts would immediately say,
Rebecca, I think I heard you
out in
use
my
the word.
mind to say, well, stop, don't meditate for a while.
Why?
Where's it got you?
Oh, comfort. I love it.
So is that comfort an escape or something?
No, I don't think so. I love this time. Nobody's up. It's dark. I'm only really comfortable sitting on my cushion physically. I have a lot of pain, and I love it. It seems like a useful habit. It's not. I don't need to do it. I mean, I'm fine when I don't do it.
Sorry, I interrupted you, Jeremy. What are you going to say? You've forgotten. That's all right.
Man, I find it fascinating that just, I guess, the same things that were happening before when I first learned of or was exposed to some of these concepts is when that fear arises. I had some situations at work this week where stress was there that I hadn't experienced in a while. And when I just go inside, look, breathe, there isn't a like conceptual necessarily understanding or bypassing that, oh, this isn't real, or this is these are just thoughts. Like I can feel that all that's here is the seeing, hearing, feeling, the sensations of my body. And so there's nothing that you need to do in those moments. And asking the question, I really like that question that Pernilla prompts for asking all the time of, can I be in a body that feels this? I've yet to get to know. I expect that there's going to be a day when that might arise, but for now it's been yes, and then everything, sometimes it dissolves pretty quickly, sometimes it sits there and doesn't dissolve. I can sense it changing, but the identifying the label of fear, looking into what sensations are actually present in the moment, that's it.
Mm. So when you look at the sensations that you have described as fear, do they change? Rebecca, do they change for you?
Ask that again.
When you look at the sensations in the body that you describe as fear, has that looking changed it?
It has once recently. Usually it doesn't. I was able to get much farther into it recently, and at one point, not only did it loosen up, but the pain in my shoulders went away.
Mm-hmm.
But then it seemed it seemed so that my body was telling me, that's enough, we're not going to do this for a little while, we're just going to digest this. And now I can't find it at all.
I love that digest word that you just used.
Mm.
I mean, I know it's also just more concepts and thoughts, but I don't know if I'd heard that before, and I feel like that's another way or another perspective into allowing the body to digest what sensations are arising.
Mm.
It's closer to
the
the
same-
feeling of what's going on for me.
And I like it because it's in the same way that you don't do anything when you eat food to make your body digest it.
Mm.
You're not doing anything to make your body like digest sensations. It just happens.
Yeah, I'm not really doing anything about any of this. It does just happen. I don't have the illusion that I'm causing it.
And I like what you said, Jeremy, about dissolving, about the fear dissolving, and so when it arrives for you, Rebecca, it comes in pretty almost aggressively. You feel that contraction, you feel that. When it goes away, does it dissolve or does it stop? Does it just dissolve?
I guess you could say that. It's almost like it becomes diaphanous.
Yep.
It fades.
Yes.
It,
It becomes less
and
and less
it-
concrete, yeah.
the story I have for that is that I'm not able to stay in touch with it, but I think it's coming and going.
Okay, so I just see you say then conceptually that it's there all the time and you're in touch with it sometimes, you're not in touch with it other times.
Yes, that's the story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you
it's sort of a
recognise that
poor me
as
story.
a story?
It's a story.
Yeah. So it could be totally wrong, that story. It could be that it
Could be.
goes and comes rather than is always there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now I asked you a bit earlier, is it triggered by anything? And I've forgotten what you told me. What was it? How does it arise?
It's triggered by freedom, triggered by opening
Okay,
up,
got you. Yes, right.
triggered by
Okay,
surrender.
that's big, isn't it? That's a big one. Yeah. Is there guilt with that freedom? Do you feel?
No,
No?
guilt's not the thing. No,
Yeah, great.
no,
Okay.
no.
But-
Fear of the story is that I was when I was little. I had more responsibility than I was equipped to handle, and that the world is dangerous because I don't know how to handle it.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah. And so that state of being at peace with the world, that state of freedom, you equate that to being overloaded with responsibility?
I don't understand what.
Yeah, that was a tricky one. Yeah. So freedom triggers the fear, but you recognize that came from a time in your life when you were burdened with too much responsibility, or responsibility that you were incapable of adequately coping with. Yeah. So that makes me think that feeling of being made responsible beyond your capability is expressed somehow in the freedom. How do you think they link up? How do you think they what's the relationship between those two things?
The fear is an illusion. It's totally an illusion. I'm perfectly capable, and the freedom is what's real.
Yeah. But when you weren't, when you felt you weren't able to cope with that responsibility, back when you were very young, the fear that you would make a mess of it. What was the fear?
No, just not that I'll make a mess of it, that I just won't be able to handle it at all.
Yeah. Okay, so let's equate that to the freedom. So do you imagine, does it ring any bells for you for me to say you won't be able to cope with this freedom if you continue to have it?
Oh, but I can. I love it. I can. Yeah. Oh, it's all I want. It's the only thing I do.
So what's the relationship from that excess responsibility when you were young to having freedom? There's something similar there. There's something, one triggers the other. What is it about? Why are they together? What's the first thing that comes to mind?
Right now I don't have a mind, just a minute.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it was a messy question too. Do you get what I'm trying to point to? That
Almost, but not quite. Almost, but not quite.
yes, that when you were young, tell me a bit more about that. When you were young and you were given too much responsibility, you were asked.
Well, I was given. What happened when I was young was I had no connection with anybody. My parents never picked me up, never gave me any comfort. They gave me lots of material things, but I was emotionally totally alone. And some really awful things happened that I was totally emotionally alone with. And so I don't have, it's like I don't have a bottom level of safety, of comfort, of being held by anything. And what happens is when I feel free, I feel held by the universe, and everything is.
So let's change the idea of having too much responsibility. That wasn't the word you used, but too much of that.
That's not really the word. Yeah.
But what you just said then makes a lot more sense.
What was that?
What you just said then makes a lot more sense. That you were missing that connection.
Yeah. That I guess babies get, that there's something that they will be taken care of.
Absolutely, yeah. And yet the opposite seems to be true when you feel held by the universe.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
the opposite. Yet that triggers something that you can say goes back to that.
Right. Yes. Yeah. It's funny because there have been times in my life when I've just completely surrendered to it. It was just fantastic. It was everything is fine, but I'm thinking of that story I was just telling about opening the whole universe opening up, and then feeling myself shutting it down. Why would that be? Why would that be? Is that?
Yeah, that's a huge why, and it's not something we need to answer straight away.
Yeah.
In fact,
stay with it.
We don't really even need to answer it at all.
No.
But recognizing the connection.
It's putting them in the same. I need to put them in the same basket and see what happens.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll do that.
And maybe look, when we don't chase those answers, they'll often come to us. But that's irrelevant. We don't need the answer.
Right.
Making that connection is just enough at the moment. Just to say, there's something about that, and there's something about then, and there's some intimate connection between Yeah,
Yeah, and I can just feel into it. I can just feel into it.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. That's good.
One way that one thing you can do is that you can work with time also, because if you had an incredible experience that gave you some grounding of security, what the mind does, to put in a linear time that it was like 3 months ago and now I'm lost in fear. But you know that it's not like this.
Yeah.
And
No,
if you
it's
have
not
an
like that.
experience of it, one way to put them together, or to think about it, or to work toward the intention, would be to reduce time, to work, to see that time it's really just an appearance, and there is many meditation or tools to do that. But to do what Vince and you were talking about, thinking about time, it's very practical. It can be a good way, I think.
Yeah, I basically don't believe in time.
yeah. This is a perfect example of that. You know, that whatever, you know, we use the concept of time to talk about when we were young and way back then, but that existence is here and now.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything.
There's no
I
time
was
between now and then. Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
I was a therapist for many years, and I got so tired of people wanting to tell me about their childhood, and I wanted them to see what's in your body right now,
yeah, right. Yeah.
because their childhood doesn't exist.
Well, it does exist, but it exists now, not then. Yeah, yeah. I get it. You get it too. Yeah,
It's a strong confusion
yeah.
in the world.
And it's kind of irrelevant. You know, the whole thing's irrelevant because what we're here now like this, and that's it. Yeah, full stop. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Full stop.
Mm.
Yep.
Hmm.
That was very useful. The idea of just rolling them into the same basket and see what happens.
Mm.
I like that. Thank you.
Mm. How have you been, Helen?
Hi. I just not good. I just came in when somebody was saying about they've been sort of fairly peaceful, and then fear comes up. That's where I am now. I've just spent a week with my sister, and I was, for the first time in my whole life, judgments came up, and I saw them, but I let them pass, and I didn't act on them, and it sort of felt wonderful, really, because I could see the judgments, but it just felt nice just to let that pass, and I'd actually seen it. So that brought to me a sense of peace, a sense of being okay and peace, and I've got home, and a lot of fear, and it's more agitation. Just then, when you were going through, what does it feel like? And I sort of went into my body, and it wasn't fear, it was more agitation, and more sort of something coming up and swizzing round and
Would
not
restlessness
settled.
would restlessness be a word that makes sense?
Yeah, very much so. Restlessness. In fact, that word came up before I went away to my sister's. I was restless. That's what I thought, restless. And I know there's something there I still can't look at or accept. And listening to the other lady just then, no, I don't know. Things were sort of happening, but I know I need to, not need to. You see that there it goes again. I've noticed a lot of things I have to do. I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to, you know, I shouldn't do this, should do that. That's cropped up a lot again, which I thought that was settling down, but it's not.
Let me jump in here. That's not a logical conclusion. You know, I thought it was settling down, but it's not. Okay, it settled down and came back. All right, it settled down and something new came up. Right. So when it settled down, you cleared some stuff. Right. That allows other stuff to come up. There's no going backwards on this. You don't go backwards.
I hope not. I couldn't bear that. I just couldn't bear it. After all these years when I thought, yeah, I just couldn't bear that.
Hmm. There'll always be new stuff come up. The more you clear, the more we allow stuff to come up. Yeah.
I need to ask a question. When sometimes when I go into my body and look at it through body, I sort of get this gulp and a yawn. Sort of, is that, does that mean anything, or not that it means something, but does it say that something's clearing?
I'm not quite sure what you mean. Describe an experience.
Yeah. So perhaps now when I'm feeling agitated, I'll sort of go into my body and feel where it's coming from. And then I sort of, my body seemed to take a gulp of air and then yawn.
Right. So tell me what that yawn feels like.
It feels like there's this big ball of something sort of in my belly. There's a big ball of something, and then the yawn, it feels like it's just sort of getting rid of just a tiny little bit. That's how it feels. Just a tiny little bit of that ball. Because then I'm not in my body quite as much when I've sort of yawned, gulped and yawned.
So would you see it as the body expressing something?
Yes, yeah, only a tiny minuscule amount of something.
Yeah, but still. So let me say it again. Expressing, right? Something getting out.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. But you're saying just a little off the surface, maybe?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's intuitively how it feels. Yeah, whether that's the case, I don't know.
No, go with your intuition. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So what about would that require a huge yawn to get rid of more, or something additional to the yawn? Wow, that hit something, didn't it?
It would require almost like being sick, or sort of really sort of regurgitating somehow.
Yeah.
Throwing something.
Love that. That concept, that idea of spewing something up, getting something out.
Really throwing something. Yeah.
Throwing it out. A projectile vomit. Just like in The Exorcist.
Yeah. Yeah. I once went to I don't know what they call it for I can't remember what the name she called herself, of a therapist. I think it was somatic. I think it might have been somatic something or other. And I just felt the need to go. This was last year. And she got to a point where she just kept pressing on my body, and it just, anger came out in a real rush.
Yeah.
I was totally surprised that, and it was huge.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if it's just more of the same,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Did it feel a bit like this is a mini version of that?
Yeah. I still feel there's something that needs to come out,
Yeah.
and the intuition says a lot of sadness and maybe anger. But I think it's more sadness now, I think, intuitively.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah, frequently I think anger is just much more acceptable or manageable than sadness.
Yeah. I think there's a deep sadness, I think. Yeah. But I may look at it one day, hopefully.
Oh well, it'll do its own thing, won't it? It'll happen when it happens. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But not having judgments about it, not having opinions about it, that's a great thing.
Yeah, I think the judgment, I can watch the judgment now and say, it was something you said about it's not necessarily me, something that's, I can't remember what it was. And there was a little gap opened up just between the judgments and me. I could see the judgments, so there was a little gap. They weren't my judgments.
Yes. Yeah. Conditioned judgments, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
It's
adopt
like
things,
really
don't
hard,
we?
this. I feel sometimes, right, I've got it now. And I've just not. I'm just not. Something that I don't know.
Let me just, again, I've got to repeat this again and again. If you feel you've got it, and then you feel you haven't got it, that doesn't mean that you never had it. Right? That feeling that you got it, that's legitimate. And the feeling that you haven't got it, that's also legitimate. But it doesn't mean the first one's no longer legitimate.
Right.
Okay? Because the more stuff we clear, the more stuff's going to come up until we run out of stuff to come up. And it will happen like that. Doesn't mean anything's been undone.
I just fear that I might die before. I just have this horrible sense of, when I see the young ones coming on, and you've got your whole life ahead of you, and I just think I've not got that much time left now.
Yeah. They'll do the same as us. They'll waste it. As I say, youth is wasted on the young. I really believe that.
Yeah. I hope not, because I hope the young ones just blossom into this.
We'd like to see that, wouldn't we? Yeah. And for some it will, of course. Yeah, but not for all. Yeah. Yeah.
Helen, when you were with, was your sister?
Yes.
That when you noticed the judgments arising, did you have that, and you became aware of them? Did you have that reaction of oh, these judgments shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be judging. Is that, I'm getting a sense that that was part of it, but
It's strange. They came up. It was judgments about her, and she just lost her son to suicide. So a lot of judgments. She was judging herself about her past and how she mothered him. And I felt some things come up because I did see a lot of what she was meaning, but it came up and it almost like I felt I had two courses of action, either to state what I thought, or let it go. And I let it go. It was almost felt like I got a choice. I don't know whether that was the case, but it felt like that. And I let it go. But another one came up and I saw it again. And I didn't want to act on it, and I let it go again. And there were lots of occasions like that I felt as an older sister. I've been in the position where I mothered my siblings, and I just didn't need to do that at that time. I just didn't need to do it, so it felt rather lovely. Thought, no, it's her life, and it felt like I was handing it over to her. It's her life. It's not mine to judge. And that's the first time in my life that's happened. So it was, if all this stuff has brought me just to that, then all these years of non-duality has brought me to that. Then I'm quite grateful.
So it comes to my mind, Helen, to ask, are you able to do that for yourself?
Oh, hey, that's a big one. No. I'd never thought of that. No, I'm very hard on myself. But I didn't think to look at that.
You will now.
Okay. Okay.
And one of the things I like to point out is that any opinion is a judgment. So it doesn't have to be as big as a judgment, but a sneaky judgment is an opinion you have about yourself and about things.
Yeah. Yes, opinion, yes. I have lots of those. Yeah. Just the change of that word makes such a difference. It just flicks the whole thing around. And it's an opinion and judgment. Yes, yes. Yes, I'm very opinionated. Not so much now, but I'm very opinionated about myself. Yes.
Yeah. It can feel justifiable about ourselves, but not justifiable about others. But it isn't justifiable towards ourselves either.
I've been looking at being opinionated with others for a long while, and that's cropped up a heck of a lot, but I've not turned it around. I knew I was hard on myself, but I've not really looked at it. I thought that was justifiable.
Yeah. There's an old saying from somewhere, I don't know where it came from, about we have to be able to love ourselves before we can love somebody else.
Oh yeah.
I think it applies here too. We have to be able to forgive ourselves and not have opinions or judgments about ourselves before we can apply that to others properly.
Can you do that? Can you do that for yourself?
Yeah, these days, it doesn't arise. So it's an interesting one, isn't it? When you ask me that question, straight away it comes to mind that not having an opinion is a nothing. It's having an opinion is something, but not having an opinion is just not there. It's nothing. It's an absence of something, isn't it? So, and I don't think of it as an absence. I just don't experience it. So, but on the other hand, yeah, bits and pieces sneak in, but I'm usually aware when they do, you know, especially if it's a bit of an ego thing, that generally rings a bit of a bell for me. And so I can go, oh yeah, that's interesting. And I tell a story that was I quite like, that happened a couple of weeks ago, and that was that something happened and I didn't have a reaction to it. I even forget what it was now, but I didn't have a reaction to it, and I felt really good about the fact that I didn't react. And then I realised that feeling good about it was just patting myself on the shoulder for not reacting. You know,
Yeah.
it's the same thing. But all you can do is laugh when that happens. You know, you don't go, "Oh, that's bad. That shouldn't have happened." You just go, "Oh, isn't it great? I saw that." Yeah.
Yeah. That's funny, because this week when I weren't speaking the judgments to my sister, I was like, "Oh, aren't I good?" That I noticed some of that. Oh, wow, I didn't call that out. You know,
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
oh,
yeah,
that were good of me. And oh, here we go again. You know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Helen, this is something came to mind, that when there's this self-judgments and opinions, you could think of it as a Punch and Judy show. And it's like every opinion or judgment has a feeling tone to it. So it's an invitation, of course, to go and say, okay, how does that judgment, what's the feeling tone in the body from that judgment? And if the judgment is you know, is the self-judgment is it Judy who's the one who's got her stick? Underneath there's another, there's the more tender part that's suffering from the judgment. So it's always interesting to look underneath. Let the judgment be, because it can make a judgment, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean anything or be believed. But it's like, okay, what's underneath? What's underneath that? What do I need to feel? And if you think of Punch and Judy, then it makes it lighter, you know.
I won't be. I can't do that.
Okay.
No, because the judgment, when the judgment comes up, it's all encompassing. So I won't be able to look below it.
Well, okay, but it's still coming from somewhere. So what's the feeling tone of the judgment then? Go into that. Start with that, because
The feeling tone.
Well, okay, so it's just the felt sense. How does it feel to think that thought? Like, for example, I don't know what type of judgment I should be doing this, or I should have done that, and it's an invitation to stop. Because stop and say, okay, how does it feel to think that? And pretty much, you know, there's going to be some sort of tension or whatever, because maybe there's a should involved. There's something going on in the body that's causing contraction. And so it's an invitation to stop for a minute and ask yourself, yeah, how does it feel to feel that thought?
Yeah, I think it's catching it first.
Even if you catch it afterwards, you can always go back.
Yeah, but I won't be able to look at the body until I've caught it.
Yeah, that's okay. I mean, it's catching it afterwards is already wonderful, because then it's seen, and it's seen to be something that's seen, that's not, you know, you're no longer all encompassed, you're seeing it. So because it's seen, then then it can be looked at in a deeper thing. But even if at that moment in time, it's all encompassing and engulfing,
Yeah.
we'll see.
And
Afterwards.
it's not a done deal. So let's say you have a judgment about something and there's a certain feeling about it and you're lost in it, and then somehow sometime later it's probably finished, but you remember that it happened. That's fine. It doesn't have to be caught as it's happening or caught before it's happening for you to get some value out of that. Right. So when you ask me if I had judgments and I'm going, oh no, whatever, and then I realized, I was watching the news tonight and there was this thing about Donald Trump, and I had judgments about that. I did. And then I go, what's the feeling tone? What Rowena says, what's the feeling tone behind that? And I go, well, then, maybe it wasn't really judgments. It was expectations that if he got to be president again, that would not be good for the world. Right? You can call it a judgment, but there's a recognition that that's there. But there's also the recognition that no matter what I think about it, it's not going to change anything. I can't influence it. It's whatever's going to happen is whatever's going to happen is whatever's going to happen. So there's also an acceptance of that. So a judgment isn't a cut and dried thing. It can bleed into other things. And even if you remember it the day after, there's still value there in revisiting it, in looking at what's underneath it.
I think it's also helpful.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, it's okay. I was just going to say this must be my next step, but please go ahead.
One thing that I thought that I needed to do before was, if I didn't catch myself in the moment and then I remembered, I was also trying to remember the feelings of the past, like, oh, what did it feel like when that thing arose? You don't need to remember what it felt like at the time. You just feel into what's right now.
Absolutely. Great. Very good.
Because it's there. There's something there. Whether it's the same or not doesn't really matter. It's when I have that thought, that emotion, that judgment, that opinion right now, that's the sensation that's helpful.
So I remember the situation where I'm very untidy. So I get really angry at myself for being untidy. So I have the judgment say in the morning. So, and if I can't sort of feel into my body because I'm really sort of upset about it, so I can look at it later in the day as a memory, and then look at the body then, feel into the body then. So remembering how I was angry or upset. So in retrospect, I can just feel it at the time I'm remembering. Would that work then?
Whatever comes up.
You can ask yourself, do you still feel it?
Oh, I still feel, yeah, I would still feel it, yeah.
So you don't, the memory thing is only a way of triggering, bringing back alive what is going on now.
Yeah, right, okay. I'll try, yeah, I'll do that, we'll do that. Might be interesting, yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, Jeremy, was that what you were getting at?
I think so. You're reminding me of how this time of the morning here, my brain isn't fully powered on. It's like it's still in standby mode or something. And if if something, if it's not right here in the front, it's still sleeping.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah. I can have that when my brain is powered on. Yeah.
One other thought that came to mind as you were talking, Helen, is I've heard this notion of like taking the object or the noun and turning it into the verb. So thoughts, or when thinking is happening. I had never heard opinioning, and it made me realize or think that like this is just a thing that the brain does. It opinions, and there's no stopping it. Or at least if it stops, it's not because you did anything. It's just not opinioning as much anymore, might be the case, but having opinions and judgments is like, I guess this is just so more complex in my head, but it's what the brain, it's what our mind thinks that it needs. It's like its job. It's one of its jobs is to make opinions and try to make connections. And when things aren't going the way that our stories and connections say that they should go, then it draws opinions and makes judgments. Is that like, well, this isn't how this story is supposed to go. I need to now sort this out, and I need to make things happen. And it's just something that that it does, and it's interesting to become aware of. That's my heart beats, my brain opinions.
That is so good. That is so good. That felt so light. That it's opinioning. It sets up for me a slight distance. Then I can see that that's what's happening. It's opinioning, and then I can. It helps set up a distance. But yeah, yeah. Thanks for that. That's so good. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not you.
Yeah.
Opinioning.
No.
It's just opinionings that are happening because it's a
opinioning
function of an organ in our body.
That is so cool. Yeah. Yeah. It immediately sets up a distance. Thank you for that. Mm.
And good to look at how you feel when that happens.
Oh, I'd feel so light. I would. It'd be something taken away. I know it would.
How are we going, Alan? We making sense to you?
Yeah, very interesting. I was just thinking when you were talking about opinions there, interesting interaction always makes me laugh is my wife, she'll talk to me and she'll ask me for my opinion. A lot of times I don't have one. I just don't have an opinion. And that can really piss her off.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? Yeah.
It's just, but yeah, I mean, like a lot of times, there's just like a test pattern going on here,
Yeah.
There's not a whole hell of a lot going on.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah. And it's interesting if you think about it from a perspective of an opinion being a judgment, then you go, you're asking me to have a judgment about that.
Come again?
If you see that opinions are judgments, and then your wife is insisting that you have an opinion about something, she's asking you to have a judgment about it. And possibly and probably she's asking you, she's wanting you to have one that she agrees with.
Oh, yeah.
Which could be a bonding experience or not.
Yeah, it can go both ways. I guess it all depends on
Very
how you
easily.
look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, we are definitely two very different people. So
Yeah.
we're more on the things of like opposites attract than birds of a feather.
Yeah. I feel like that with most of the world. Yeah. And yet I've discovered that some people that I call friends don't at all think like me. We have nothing in common in terms of our philosophy of life or our politics or anything else, and yet they're friends. They're okay,
Yes.
even though they've got totally weird ideas about the world. Because mine obviously are right. Yeah.
Yeah, you make connections. I don't understand the connections I've made with people, and I don't really second guess it. I just go with my gut.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
people that are my friends are my friends, and I agree with. It's the same thing like you said. There are things we agree with: music, politics, whatever. And then there are other things, we don't agree with, but it doesn't disrupt or disturb the friendship vibe that's going on here, Although I think that especially with this type of where I am, wherever I am here now with this, I seem to I just seem to feel seem to have a lot of tolerance for stuff. I mean, there's just stuff doesn't affect me. It doesn't emotionally disturb me. And that, if there's anything and this is going to be a paradox here, but that in itself can feel disturbing sometimes, because there is like, shouldn't I feel something about this?
Mm.
And the question arises, am I beyond that, or am I repressing something? So, as I said earlier, when I first came on, I think it was just the two of us here. I said, that's why I like participating in a format like this, because I hear the interactions and a lot of this stuff resonates with me. I'm not going to really hear this anywhere else.
Mm.
I mean, I have nobody else that in my personal life that I can relate this to, or that I try to. My wife's my closest ally, but when it comes to this stuff, she just thinks this is crazy.
Yeah. Mine too. Mine thinks it's a total load of shit. Yeah.
And I'm cool with that. But it's like, what's interesting is like, I'm cool with her saying, this is bullshit. You're wasting your time. You could be doing something else.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that, but she not fine with this, So it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's one of the values of these groups, is talking to people that are, how can I put it, on the same wavelength, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. But just like when Helen was talking there, if I'm critical of anyone, I'm most critical of myself. And I don't, like I said, I will extend, it's so much, and that's always been my history. It's like I'm always more willing to I guess I'm willing to be more generous to people other than myself, you know.
Right, right.
So I'll take the blame on, and I'll beat my, I mean, I won't take their blame on. I mean, if somebody's doing something, I never feel like that I'm responsible or accountable for it unless I have a direct hand in it. But it's just, you know, like, so I could say to somebody, I think like, wow, I really feel a lot of empathy for you. I wish you well. I wish you could just let that go. And it's like, so, okay, turn that around and extend it to yourself. That's hard to do.
Mm.
And again, that's just kind of my bag. That's my
Yeah, yeah. That's well, on my experience, I want to say that'll change for you. Yeah. I can't believe who I see when I look at my picture of myself there, or if I look in the mirror, you know, it's like, wow, who's that? It doesn't feel like me. But there is, I have an acceptance of myself now that is unapologetic, you know. That's the way it is, you know. I can't do anything about it, and I'm not intending to, and I don't worry about it, you know. So I have a tolerance or an acceptance of myself these days that never used to be there. But so I would hope that my experience is something that might come for you as well, and for Helen, that you'll get to understand and accept yourself in a way that's it's kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is, I'm on the cusp of that, or that is already in the process of, you know,
Yeah. It's
the
close. It's always
path that
close.
I'm
Yeah.
going. Yeah. And that, and I say, I think I say I'm pretty sure that's what's happening, because there's that feeling then of, oh, maybe, you know, like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
It's like, well, why am I cutting myself slack? Well, but then you
Yeah.
cut yourself the slack. And it's
Absolutely.
like, wow, this is pretty nice. Why have I done this all along? You know?
Well, you wouldn't berate a tree for being the way it is, whatever shape it is or whatever condition it's in. You wouldn't berate an animal for being the way they are. Why would we berate ourselves for being the way we are? Yeah.
I don't know. Guess you always got to feel like you got to blame someone.
Blame God. That's an easy one. Yeah.
I'm laughing at your comment about the tree, Vince. I used to have these judgments that would come up when I would see a tree in any sort of artwork. And if it had any like imbalance, or like there was something that just looked off about it, I'd be like, oh, like what a like that's a shitty looking tree. Like, couldn't you make it more like whole and even and balanced? Have you ever looked at like a real tree in the forest?
Yeah.
They're nothing like what
Absolutely.
I expected that artist to draw. And so it's like real trees are very rarely,
Yeah.
at least in my experience, when
Absolutely.
they're by themselves, maybe they have more of an opportunity to be that idyllic tree that I have in my head. But if you look at a tree in the forest around other trees, they're nothing nothing like what I thought they would. They're branches, you know, the branches just on one side, or they're
Absolutely.
yeah.
And that goes back a long way for me. I can remember as a child feeling really, I don't know if I was sad or bad, but not good, really unpleasant feeling that the trees in my country, which were mostly eucalypts, were nothing like the trees that Robin Hood used to climb up. You know, I wanted trees that had low, big branches that spread out and you could climb up them. Well, you can't climb up a eucalypt because it branches are too high and they're never even and they never spread out like that. It was something wrong with the trees here. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, yeah. And I've been through a phase of doing bonsais, and of course, what you do with bonsais is you definitely don't make them look perfect like that. They're all you celebrate the imperfections. Yeah, well, so-called imperfections. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. How's things for you, David J. Dadge?
This might be a change of gears. I guess where I've been lately is looking at this sense of being located and recognizing how it's an overlay. And yesterday I got up. I usually sit. I get up and get settled, and then we'll sit. And during the night, I had a lot of dreams. So when I woke up, usually that content kind of lingers for a while, sort of comes and goes. So when I was sitting, it was all there, floating around, coming and going. And often, sometimes the entire sitting could go by like that. But yesterday, the recognition came that this is all very familiar. It's a familiar space. The furnishings are familiar, the characters. There was like a recognition of that familiar quality. And then the thought occurred that the one viewing it is familiar too. The viewing position feels the same. But then the recognition came that that is more content in itself. It's all content, everything. And it brought to mind that we talked weeks ago about being in the cockpit with no windows and how everything is a representation. That's all the mind has to offer. There's so it seemed that everything consolidated into seeing how there is only access experientially to interpretive experience, simulated. It's what the mind does with the data that comes in. It makes its best guess, and that's how the phenomenal life plays out. That's all it is. There is nothing but the mind's interpretation of the data that is available to it, the data that has collected. So it's like kind of, that's the water that we swim in. So then the recognition after that is what is aware of that, and what is not part of that, what is not overlaid onto that, what's not an interpretation. So that was kind of that's where I am now.
Okay, so the question immediately came up for me with that last sentence. Is there anything that's not an interpretation?
Not experientially, not in phenomenal experience.
So only conceptually there is some something or someone or some whatever that's aware of that.
No, no, I would say that's the recognition that any sense of a witness or an experiencer is
It's still
just more
content.
more content, more representation based on whatever data has been available.
Yep, yep.
So there is no experience of a someone that is not a conceptual overlay.
Exactly. Yeah, I agree. Yes, yes. So there is only experience. That's it. Full stop.
Oh, well, again, this is something that we talked about last week. The experience and well, maybe I shouldn't say end, but there's knowing of the experience.
That's
And
just still experience, isn't it?
yeah.
So the concept of content suggests that there's a container, but there isn't. It's like a thought. A thought is its content. Without the content, there is no thought. So
It brought to mind something Paul was saying last week, that without an object, there's no experience. It doesn't make sense to speak of experience without an object. So I see that. There is no experience without an object of experience, but I wouldn't, this might be a rehash of what we talked about, but
that's okay. It's worth exploring. Yeah.
like that.
I'm not agreeing here. I'm not agreeing about that. At one level, that may be true, but it occurs to me that object is no different from the experience. It is the same thing.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
it can't be separate as such.
No.
But we're talking now eighth fetter stuff. I think, we're talking actual existence stuff here. This is pretty yeah.
I think it is very essential. And I listened the last conversation with Paul last week, and it was very, very interesting, because I feel that I feel this space also. Like, of course, the words are very limited to enter into this kind of definition, but I think a very good way to perceive this, to kind of be at peace with this seemingly conflict of awareness and experience and object and consciousness, is really to see that there is only one thing that is present now, and this thing appear in two ways. So this is like, there is a presence and there is experience, but I think the word experience is kind of confusing. The very good word, it's the words that Peter Brown used, and it's radiance. Like, there is a presence and there is the radiance of itself showing up, like the sea and the wave. Conceptually, we kind of divide it. There is no wave without the sea, and there's no sea without the wave, even if one is primary in a way. But I think to think that way, it puts really harmony within what's happening. I don't know how you see this, David.
For me, it's a bit different. Like, it's all very simple. The experience is very direct. Like there is taxes to do, and that's it. There is just taxes to do, and if I don't do them, then there is some consequences. If I do, then I do, and maybe I don't like them. And then of course there is layers. There is layers of conceptuality, of emotions and stuff. But it's, you know, it's very clear that there is the situation, the reality of things, and then there is layers. But you don't. When my experience was that at some point that there was a sort of separation between the conceptuality and the real. I don't know if that's the 8 to the 10 feather or something like that. But then before that separation happened, it was kind of like that, like everything is just concepts, because how can you perceive things without the overlay of thoughts? But then after that, it kind of became very, very direct. And I could sort of like walk in my garden and look at a tree, and it's just a tree. And there might be no thoughts. And there is just this, you know, silence and, you know, a tree and the moment. And so that's it. And yeah. And
Really
there is
hard
just
to
that
talk about, isn't
silence.
it?
And there is that deep silence, and everything just arises out of that silence. And so there is experience, there is things happening, and then sometimes there are thoughts that try to explain it, and there is some sort of part of me that sees those thoughts. And then there might be occasionally some emotions. And there is again a kind of seeing that and noticing it. And there is always that part that is kind of aware, sometimes subtly, sometimes not so subtly, but there's always that sort of sense of being aware. Like I don't find myself lost in experience anymore, even like very extreme experiences. And I find that there is always a kind of part of me who knows that, yeah, there is, you know, this is happening and it's kind of, you know, a big deal, but we'll get through that. And maybe this is very, very intense, but that's just what is. And that sort of part is, yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit circular, isn't it? Oh, sorry, go on. Somebody was talking.
I guess saying there's a part of me that sees this, that jumps out.
Hmm.
Yeah, but there is layers of stuff. Yeah, so there is kind of like the mental layers that come just from thoughts. There is a conceptual layer of overlay over reality that comes from beliefs, even like very subtle beliefs. So let me give you an example to kind of illustrate that point. Then I recently noticed that when my nose itches, I just like go and scratch it, and I always scratch it the same way, like more or less, you know. You probably do the same, like that's kind of what we do. But it's a belief, it's a subtle belief. It's a subtle belief that that's what you do. Then the nose itches, you have to scratch it, and then the problem is gone. But we don't really know. It's just a kind of thought, that habit, then turned to a belief. Maybe, you know, maybe it's some aliens trying to communicate with me. That's why my nose itches. Maybe, you know, it's a sign like I need to eat some avocado. Maybe maybe I need to scratch the nose the other way. It's all like beliefs, and there is endless layers of this kind of very, very subtle beliefs. But underneath all that, after you go through this process, there is just this very direct experience of experience. And so the part that sort of sees it, well, when I think about like my own experience of what I am, of how I experience myself, there is not really a sense of like self. There is not really a sense of like existence, so I am, or anything like that. I don't really find that. I don't experience that. But I kind of notice things more than in the middle of experience. Like, let's say if I am doing something, and if something is happening, something, especially something that might cause some more, more thoughts and more emotions. And then at the same time, I kind of notice that there is that part that is also noticing that. So that part of like the observer, it sort of arises along with the experience. So the experience arises, the thoughts, arise, the emotions, and then kind of the observer. It all sort of comes up together. But if there is no trigger, no experience, there is just a kind of silence most of the time.
This is what I mean by when I say it all becomes consolidated as more content. There's no more parts or layers. It's all content. It all gets lumped into the category of experience. So that experience can also have an overlay of being experienced from a location as a body, as a perceiver. So the recognition was that in itself is more content. So that leaves just the sense of the awareness. And I think this is what I think I was trying to get at with Paul, was that there's that question of objectless awareness. And I think that's what Paul was pushing back on, that doesn't make sense. But awareness of awareness is objectless. Since awareness is not an object, when it takes itself, when awareness knows itself, that is objectless knowing. Well, I don't know if it can be, I think that's the word he was taking issue with, knowing.
I would feel very reluctant to disagree with Paul, but he's not here now. But I just, when I was listening to that last week, and I was just remembering what I would say, remembering experience. Sometimes I have the experience. The feeling I have sometimes, even now, is that there can be experiencing, and to bring the word knowing into it feels like a contraction of mind. I have to try to know, I have to contract to, or if there's an object to know, that becomes dualistic, and I feel I'm contracting to do that. But before that, there's, my usual phrase of, pretentious non-dual bullshit comes in. It just feels like there's experiencing happening before knowing. And then there's no need for a knower or a known to be separate. It's just experiencing. And it's very subtle for me. It's not a very big deal. But when I hear the word knowing, I go, no, but you have to make an effort to know. Someone has to be there to know, or an object has to be. But before that, experiencing is just there.
Yeah, I agree. That's good. Well done, Don. You can. I'll send you a certificate for that one.
Yeah, I think it's also my experience is it's the same with awareness, being aware of itself, or being aware, watching awareness. is also a collapsing state into making awareness into a thing, or a more solidity. There's a contraction even in that.
Mm.
Um,
And we
For
do.
me, I mean,
Yeah.
I feel more like even if I have very blissful states, but somehow my experience I will formulate it in the way that awareness never show itself naked to itself. It has always some kind of disguise, and it can be very gross, like I am a human being, with doing stuff, or it can be very, very light, like like just an amazing sensation of bliss and being everything and light. And even this, of course, it's kind of an expression of itself, but without but I love this topic, and it can get very
Mm.
we have to be very precise and everything, and I don't think that this is the purpose right now. But I really love it. I really love this, because this field, and what we are talking right now, I think this is, to me, at this moment, it's really healing. It's healing in a way that I cannot even understand. And even when healing, I'm aware that can induce some kind of process. But my feeling, this awareness, this kind of, like David said to me, it's like more and more like experience. It's a whole. It's one thing. It's right here, and that's it. It's just one seamless experience happening. And when I feel this, I can feel all of the kind of positive sensation, like being supported, like everything that is positive, kind of express itself more after in my experience, and I love it, and I think it's really great. So I have one question, David, because as you felt this kind of like you say, switching gears, when you saw that even location, it's made up, how did you feel some change in your everyday life?
It brought gratitude. I felt like a consolidation. I don't know if I mean, the question was whether it was intellectual. I mean, it brought some tears and smiling, but Paul also, I recall he said that before you, I think he said something like, before you understand non-duality, you have to understand duality. But it struck me that understanding duality is seeing that there is no duality. Duality is conceptual. There's no such thing as duality. Duality is imagination.
Yeah, I mean, I I don't know what Paul wanted to say, but what I would say is like what we are doing, I mean, or what is happening is like it's a reality understanding how she works in itself, I mean, how awareness works is like it presents itself to itself in an infinity possibility, and one of them it's being a human being, feeling to be this or this or that. So it's an expression of it. So of course I agree that the only thing we talk about is duality, but there is only one thing here, and is awareness. And when you say duality, I think the only thing we want to understand is how the mechanism of reality, how does it work? And the more you understand how it works, the more you can feel directly more and more what we are. Does that make sense?
Rowena wants to say something.
Sorry, so I was muted. I find the best resting place, the most expansive, is just remembering the Tao. That I can't remember the exact translation, but that should be named is not the true Tao. And so giving any name is already a little bit of a contraction, saying it's awareness, confusing awareness or experiencing. And I loved what Don said, that knowing is already, there's a contraction. It's because it's just a word, and there's something here that's interpreting the word and trying to figure out, is that the right word? There's some mechanism going on. And I think this is a wonderful conversation, and Paul's view, I was there too, and I enjoyed it very much. But in the end, it's like, whew, you know, that's the true sensation of when we're talking about it, is like, this is the mystery, and it's just, then that feels the truest in this body mind.
Bianca's got a hand up.
I have two things about knowing and pure awareness. About knowing, I would like to ask Mr. Paul, maybe tomorrow. But there are, well, two kinds of knowing, broadly speaking. And because you all read so much, you probably know the Mary thought experiment about a Mary who never in her life saw red. She read everything about the color red. She knows about the wavelengths and so on, but she never saw it. And it's this kind of knowledge that you can have all the information, but you don't know the experience. Is there a contraction in this kind of knowing when I see red? I mean, it's knowing, but not really any information. Or is it?
Yeah. So you're talking about the information, about the knowledge there, yeah. So if you were to experience red, like let's say a baby experiences the color red, there's no label, there's no knowing, so there's no contraction. But the moment you put a label on it, and the moment that you know it, there is some kind of a contraction going on. You have to put it into a container in order to know it. So in that container is concept, I guess.
Why can't you just know the sensation?
Well, the baby, but they don't know the sensation, they experience the sensation. So in order to know it, you're going to do something with the mind, aren't you?
It seems like semantics.
Yes, yeah, it is to a degree, yeah.
Could be the same. But I all of that, everything, all of that, I would still put into the bucket of content.
Sure.
The content of what arises.
Yep.
But nothing arises without awareness of it. It's one arising. It's the same thing.
Mm.
There is nothing that arises without awareness.
What we have to do is be careful that we don't just wander off into philosophizing, conceptualizing. If we keep reminding ourselves that the appropriate thing is what our experience is, and that what our experience is different from what we say our experience is. As soon as we say it, we're doing something else with it. So what I was going to say a little earlier is that this is a circular thing that we do. So we come to this with the idea that we want to change something. We become spiritual seekers because there's something that we're I guess we're suffering, and we want to end that suffering or some version of that. Right. But what we do when we first come is we start to recognize that we were lost in the content of our thought. We were expressing the content of our thought in an emotional way, and it was probably a bit unpleasant often, and that was what we were doing. So we learn how that happens. We learn what the mind does and how the mind creates that suffering that we experiencing. And then we work our way through something, and we end up back where we started from. We end up back in expressing our experience. Only it's different this time. You know, it's not a circle, it's a spiral or something. So we end up being experience. But when we're suffering, we are being experience. There's no difference except in what it is that we're experiencing, but we're still experiencing. The moment we start talking about it, we just introduce a different experience, another experience that's overlaid on the original, but it's still experience. There is nothing but experiencing. If we start talking about what that experiencing is, we're just going to have a different experience.
And we can we not also say that all experience in one sense is untrustworthy because it's illusory, because it's what the mind is interpreting.
Yeah.
From.
Yeah. All right. Well, I don't like the trustworthy bit, but okay. What we can say is it's experience, and it's created.
But where does it leave us?
We're talking about it again, aren't we?
Where does it leave us? Yeah. So
if anywhere, or it leaves us wherever we are, whatever that is.
But if we come to the recognition that experience is always interpretation.
Yeah.
It's always simulated.
It always
then
was. It always was, and it always is, and it always will be if we get into that story.
And then where are we left? What is that?
Anywhere. We don't have to be anywhere. We're just.
What is that? Yeah, but there's also the recognition of its nature.
That's just another experience.
I think what's helpful is to go back to actually what Jeremy mentioned about opinion and opinioning is making everything verbing. So experience, there isn't experience because that becomes a thing, an object, but experiencing is freer. The same with awareness is not a thing, but because we give it a name, awareness. But there's an experience of awareing. I mean, we don't have a word for that, or even being aware is like a state. So I think that loosens things up to know that it's all verbing, and then there's nothing that can be made into a thing.
But once we recognize that is all content, it doesn't matter if it's a verb or a noun. It's content. It's what is there to be experienced, however it's being experienced. It's there.
So we have to contract it, as Don says, into a concept that says it is something that we're experiencing. But that's just language again.
Yeah,
It's contenting, if you like.
Yeah.
yeah. So if that doesn't happen, if there's just the recognition that you can't do anything with the content without creating more content.
Yeah. But the content is the container as well. So if there is only experiencing, whatever you talk about, whether you talk about content or awareness or whatever, it's just another expression of experiencing.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
just more content.
We can say, well, we know that experiencing is created by what? By our thoughts. We create our experiencing. Well, we don't do that. It happens. What is it? We become wordless very quickly. Experiencing, creating, experiencing.
It
But
has
not
to
created, it's just there.
Yeah.
So what Paul, as I see it, and I don't really want to put words into Paul's mouth, but the way I see it with Paul, what Paul was saying, like he would use the concept of thoughts being an object in consciousness. Now that's a whole lie, but it's a great stepping stone for people. Like we are, awareness is a stepping stone, but we're going to get beyond that too. There's nothing or everything that's the same. That's why ideas of it's right or wrong or it's good or bad, all that is just another bit of creation in the story of experiencing. But we have to contract in order to make sense of those things. Now, Don does a lot of contracting because he judges what's going on as wrong. But it's still at a level where we step out and look at it and want to describe it, we still say all that is his version of experiencing.
But I want to say that we have also to be careful not to become nihilistic, to say that, oh, because I realize that everything it's an imagination, so it doesn't matter, because often it doesn't work like that. But I want to say that not because I recognize that everything is experienced, that there is no meaning appearing within it, and then you think that there is even if concepts are imaginary, they can be useful.
Yes.
Even if thoughts is kind of the feeling of being limited, it can also be useful. So it's not because everything is just appearing that there is no meaning, that there is no there's no value in what's happening. But I think the big shift with this understanding is like you can put the meaning inside us, whatever is us mean to you, but to being, because and we kind of extract, we kind of pull out the value and the beauty outside of experience to put it into being. And I think I know it's a lot of word, and we can talk about there's no extra, there is no this, there is no that, but thinking that way and kind of and feeling that way, to me, it's very useful more and more.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So
Yeah, there's something wrong with
I have problem with that. It's like always it doesn't mean there's no meaning, but I don't know. It's always said like it's obvious. It's not obvious to me. What is meaning?
What is not obvious to you, Bianca? I did not understand. What,
What you said, that we have to be careful not to become nihilistic, because it's that there is meaning.
oh yeah, no, sorry. I think I didn't express myself very well. But I was trying to say it's in my past, I use non-duality and my understanding against myself, in the sense that I was saying, so because there is no David, so David's life doesn't matter, you know. So if David isn't happy, I don't have to do anything about it, you know. And because I don't have to eat, I stop eating, and I nearly die because I didn't eat any food, you know. So but it doesn't matter, right? There's no David. It doesn't matter if I'm suffering. It doesn't matter if I'm sad. It doesn't. So in this sense, I'm saying nihilistic. I mean, to not taking care of your emotion and your person, and if you want to reach some human goal, it's all of this. I was saying not to use the understanding to kind of restrain your human life.
Yeah, it's a
Why?
type of bypassing, actually, when you just say, oh, well, I mean, recognize that there's no self, therefore, it's a sort of like it's a very dead zone, but mostly it's because I think there's a disconnection with actually what's alive in the body, and there's always this pointer. Because if you say, oh, there's nobody thinking, well, all thinking is arising. Where's it coming from? But it's being generated because through a body mind, we're not just, we're not nothing. Maybe there's no, and so it's a different, I think it's a misunderstanding between I don't exist and the fact that there isn't actually a body mind here functioning. It's a sort of misunderstanding. Of going off in that direction, and I can understand it, and even relate to it, but it's like I think it's a little bit of a stepping stone that can be arrived at on the way, having had the realization, an awakening, and the realization that there is no self. Then it's confusing for the system, because all of a sudden everything that we've believed in and we thought ourselves and identified with, there isn't anything there, and so it's a collapse, a state of collapsing of like, okay, well, and almost like a denial of the grieving process that needs to start with that. I don't know if there's any that relates at all. And then when the grieving process and the anger and the whatever of losing the self that has been structured gets underway, and then it's the funneling down into a sort of, you know, the deeper parts of the being.
We're missing what Bianca brought up about meaning and nihilism. So I always see nihilism as an incomplete waking up. Right? It's stopping at the mental level when we have this nihilistic state. But at the same time, and this is one of the ultimate paradoxes, meaning, it's obvious to me that meaning is created. Meaning is made up. Meaning is different in every society in the world, right? We make up meaning. Now, to say then that there is no meaning is kind of going sideways. It's pointless to go down that road. So the fact that I recognize that meaning is made up, even though anybody that goes to a psychologist, the first thing they're going to try and do is give them meaning in life, give them purpose in life, right? But it's all created. So the fact that there is no meaning doesn't take away from how wonderful being alive is. Being alive is full of wonder. It is just, I don't, you know, words aren't enough to say what it is. So where does nihilism fit into that? No, there's no place in that for it.
Well, for me, nihilism,
Yeah.
and but there is no absolute meaning, and obviously people
Mhm.
create meaning. In a way, it's a good thing that there is no absolute meaning, because we can create freely whatever meaning we want.
And we
If there
do.
was one absolute meaning, then we would have no choice about it.
Mm. Exactly. Yeah.
It just makes it more free, but I don't think I can create meaning for myself.
Ah, yes.
And
Well, I say you don't need to. You don't need to.
yeah,
create meaning.
I don't feel I need to.
Mm.
Yeah, I think then in a way, then one can, I can see if I need to have give meaning to things, and I'm really attached, we're sort of looking at third theta. In a way, we're creating if we need to have meaning,
Yep.
give
Right.
meaning to things, then we're needing to make a belief or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And we would be stuck there in that rites and rituals.
Yeah.
area. Yeah.
This gives a whole
But
new.
I think it's all about concessions, because when David G was talking, right, there is some kind of revelation of like there's no localization. And what I understand of that in my own experience is like sensation are thoughts. Like there's only thoughts. There's no seeing is a thought. So everything is thoughts. And after, because it's too much, or you kind of do concession to reach where someone is thinking to be. And I just wanted to name it because I can feel this, right now I can feel there is an expansion, and after there is some kind of contraction to reach where everyone here is feeling to be, and kind of to give the next step in it.
Mm.
This gives a whole new, or not new, but like a deeper understanding of freedom, and that like before I would take meaning and purpose and beliefs and rules and rituals as being rigid and strict, and seeing them more for what they are doesn't mean that those things aren't helpful or can't exist. They're just seen as there's more flexibility and freedom to play with them and use them in ways that are helpful. This analogy of a game keeps coming up in my head, and that like if you're playing a game, and then maybe you realize, oh, I see like a dichotomy between, or not dichotomy, but a difference between like children playing a game and having a lot of fun and enjoyment, and freedom in playing the game, and then maybe an adult comes in, it's like, oh, this is just a stupid game, like why are you taking this so seriously? It doesn't mean that you can't still play the game and enjoy the game, or maybe you make up and change the rules. That the game doesn't have to go away. You can still play. You might just not have it be so rigid and serious and strict and inflexible and trapped and
Yeah.
believing things that have to be the way that they are within those rules and that rigid beliefs and structure, and I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Hi, can I just say, you know, I've been listening to this, and at one time I'd have been totally absorbed in it and wanting to know and questioning. But I came to a point that I think one of the, I don't know, I think it was Rupert Spear, I think. And he said, my mind can never know this. What we have is what we call mind can never know what we're trying to know. And it sort of stopped me in my tracks. I thought, yeah, I mean, you can speculate, you can look at these from different angles, and semantics gets in the way and everything else. But actual mind, the mind that we're using to know this other, I don't think. And so since then, I've sort of took this more lightly.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Our brains
Part
as
of-
prediction machines.
Yeah, sorry.
Or David, you were talking earlier, David J, about how our brains are, you know, prediction machines taking in data and trying to paint a picture of what's of what it's taking in. It's like it can't help but try to figure things out. It can't help but try to understand how to interpret the data and come up with an explanation. And no matter what I guess conceptual level you break through, now there's just another mystery for it to try to figure out, and another one, and it, in the same way that you know, one of its jobs is to generate opinions and judgments and try to figure things out. It can't help but try to make sense. And once you make sense of something, it's looking for more things to try to make sense of. And
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 so
once you
what we're looking to discover is how nonsensical that is.
So I wonder, a question for Jeremy, once you recognize that you have only the brain's or the mind's futile attempts, then where are you in that?
Don't answer that. There's no answer to that.
Can I answer?
Yeah, of course.
I'm at a place I don't care.
Yeah, good. I love that. Yeah, very good. Yeah.
No, for me, I would say that you don't have only the mind.
Okay, that's a shift in perspective. Yeah.
You know, like we said, I have only perception, sensation, experience, but that's not true. There is so much more, so much.
Yeah. And so much of that is indefinable, if that's the right word, but yeah. Yeah, we are more than that. Anyway, listen, folks, it's just hit midnight here, and I've got another one of these. It's in 7.5 hours, so I'm going to bed.
Thanks,
night.
Vince,
Thanks,
everybody.
Thanks.
I
Good one.